looked at the principal and he said, well, you're just going to have to fire me because his life is worth it. Like, I firmly believe in life, it's a lot of moments and it's a lot of people that change and impact your life, right? Like, I don't believe it's just one moment and you say, this one moment just changed my life. Even though that moment may have, but it's going to be another moment that's going to shape and change your life as well. Like, my arm changed my life. My teacher changed my life. But to be more specific, when he met me in the 8th grade, the first day he told me my wife at the time, he said that she's going to be your wife one day. Scared the mess out of me. Like, man, this guy has lost his mind, right? But I'll never forget, he drove up in my neighborhood and I was on the corner with one of my uncles. And my uncles at the time, they were drug dealers, right? And I wasn't selling drugs. I was just hanging out. You hung out in the neighborhood on the street. And he pulled up in his truck and he was just like, what are you doing out here? Like, I'm chilling. He's like, no, you didn't hear me. What are you doing out here? I was like, I'm hanging out. He's like, get in the truck. And I got in his truck. He said, point me to your house. I pointed him to my grandmother's house. We pulled up. I get out and he says to me, Ink, you're better than that. And I was like, I hear you. I was like, but the same corner you just picked me up from, my uncle wear a 2X t-shirt. I said, in the morning when I come to your class, I'm going to be wearing a 2X t-shirt that he stood on the corner in and probably sold drugs in and did whatever all night. And I'm 135 pounds. So I hear you, right? But to me, those are just words, right? Basically saying to him, I'm coming from a real situation, right? So I hear you talking, but I'm coming from a real situation. And he was like, you think I'm playing? I'll be here in the morning to pick you up. And the next morning he picked me up and he said, here's the deal, man. He said, I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to play you in a game of one-on-one basketball every morning. And I'm going to make you recite a proverb until you graduate high school. And I was like, he's just talking. And every single morning he did it. He picked me up, take me to school. He would play me in a game of one-on-one basketball, make me recite a proverb. And this is the moment I knew it was for real. The principal came into the gymnasium. And in Atlanta and in, school systems, most of them worldwide, public schools, you got this thing between the church and the state, right? To where they don't want you to bring church religion into the school system, which I get and I understand. And the principal came into the gymnasium and said to him, I heard you've been given Inky Proverbs, which Proverbs out of the Bible. And he said, yes, sir, I have. He said, stop it or I have to fire you. And at the time, my teacher was 23 years old, right? We were his first class of students, fresh out of college. And he looked at the principal and he said, well, you're just going to have to fire me because his life is worth it, right? And I'll never forget in that moment saying, if he's willing to put the way that he provides for his family on the line for me, I got to give him everything I got, right? And I never wanted to let him down. So I was playing football from the time I was 7 years old, but I also played at that high school, and we weren't very good, right? During my stint, we weren't, right? But prior to me, the school had some pretty good teams, but during my stint, we weren't very good. We had some very athletic guys. I just don't think at that time football was the most important, right? Because you had guys with real life situations, right? You had guys, mothers that were dealing with things, whether it was drug addiction, whatever the case may be, guys' fathers that weren't in the household, in prison, guys' houses getting broken into. So it was real life issues. When we would come to the lunch table, whereas as most high schools, kids would come to the lunch table, they're talking about goals, dreams, aspirations. When we would come to the lunch table, we were talking about real life problems, right? We were talking about how such and such is gonna eat, right? We were talking about how can he get some clothes on his back, right? What can we do for such and such? We was talking about our situation, and we were in high school, we were teenagers, right? Dealing with real life problems. And so football wasn't the most important thing, even though we played it. But to me, it was the most important thing because I felt like this could be the vehicle that I could help my family through. So me and my wife, we work with homeless downtown Atlanta. And in my neighborhood, we see homeless people all the time. Like, we had kids that went to school with us that used to sleep in abandoned houses, that teachers adopted. Like, my mentor was my 8th grade math teacher, basketball coach. Like, him and his wife adopted 3 kids from Atlanta public school system, right? Because he felt they didn't have anywhere good to go after school. And so you could very much see, if you go on one side of town in Atlanta, you could see affluent. If you go on the other side of town, you could see people under bridges for whatever reason, right? And for me, when we do work with homeless now, it's a great teaching tool, because even at the shelters, you would think when you go to a shelter, the first time we went, we had a group of people with us. And I just wanted to hear their thoughts, right? And most of the circle was like, oh man, people are irresponsible. They're probably doing drugs, right? Probably made some bad choices. And when we got in there and you start talking to people and you meet a mother that says she's there because domestic violence, right? And this is the only place that she can go. They can't post pictures on Facebook and the guy can't find her. And she's there and it's a transitional program. She's working. She has an exit date for her and her daughter. You meet a man there, right, that lost his whole family in a house fire, right? And he's trying to get back on his feet, right? So it's different reasonings. And you got some there that are irresponsible and that may have done drugs, whatever the case may be, right? But I look at it through the lens of, who am I to judge, right? If I've been put in a situation to help and to serve, I'm going to help as much as I can. I'm going to serve as much as I can, because I feel like that's a part of who I am and that's my character. Because I've came from a situation to where I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. I came from a place to where I watched my mother scrape up change in dollars to get me a pair of cleats, right? To being in a situation to now I could buy my son, I could buy my daughter cleats and it's not a problem, right? I can even buy their teammates some cleats and it's not a problem. But my perspective about it is different, and I got a level of compassion that a lot of people can't understand. Man, it's so tough, because I remember when I was young and I didn't have my father, right, in the household, and we became cool, and I remember I used to live my life, and I had it was like a resentment toward him, right, because I couldn't understand why he wasn't there early on. I just couldn't understand it, right? And when I would be home and we would experience certain things, and me and my cousins would be asleep on the floor, right? And there were certain questions and things at times that I wanted to ask my father, and because he wasn't in the household, I couldn't ask him. So it created a resentment until one day I just asked. We were together and, I just asked, man, what happened? And he just shared with me what happened. Right? I was young, your mother was young, right? I ended up losing my mother, right? And I was just scared, right? And when he told me this situation, I could understand it, right? And for most people, it's like forgiveness is the hardest thing in the world. And when you see a son, when you see him coming up with his mother, or you see a father that's not present, a lot of times for me, I think now, man, what's that situation? And I want to understand it. Right? Because I firmly believe, as tough as the situation is, my teacher said this to me. My teacher, who's my mentor, my 8th grade teacher. He said to me one day when I was in the 8th grade, because we was talking about fatherhood and stuff like that, and some of my friends, they were talking about their fathers. We were just having a man conversation. And one of my friends said, man, my father don't care about me. He don't want me, right? I'm in the world, I don't see him, right? And my teacher said to him, son, I don't think any man brings a kid into this world and don't think about him and don't love him and don't want him. And the kid was like, no, man, that's wrong, right? And he was like, I'm a man, I'm a father, I'm a husband, right? And when he said it, at the time I was young and I was like, I don't know. But now that I'm a father, right? I got 2 kids, or I got 3 little sisters. Right. And it's this thing inside of me that makes me think it was true. It was real. But situations and circumstances happen sometimes that we can't understand. And it leaves a mother in the household, or sometimes it leaves a father to be a single father. Right. And when that happens, I think the village is important. It's like me. I got a level of accountability and responsibility with my son. Right. If my son plays on a team, right, and his kids on that team, that their fathers are not present, I feel like I have a responsibility and obligation not to be their father, right, but to fill a void, to be a positive male figure in that kid's life as much as possible, and not just look at the kid and see him drowning and just be like, that's not my kid, I'll just let him drown, right? No, he's very much so my kid, right? Because God has put me here to be present in this kid's presence, so I'm gonna help him, right? And so it's just becoming a village around that mother or around that father to assist as much as possible to help that kid be shaped and molded in the right way with principles. Hey, how you doing, guys? Inky Johnson here. Just got done, man, doing an interview with my guys, the Mulligan brothers. We had a great time. I appreciate their platform and what they do. Most importantly, I respect and I admire it. Take care. Peace.